I'd say the one common thread of anybody that I work with is successful. Financial, athletes, people in politics, it's hunger. You know, you and I both know intelligence is a pretty damn valuable tool, but there are a lot of very smart people who can't fight their way out of a paper bag. And then when you find somebody who has that hunger, the hunger that doesn't go away, that hunger to be more, to do more, to give more, that hunger that never ends, you know, that's how you get these people that are the best in the world at whatever they do. And so if you can, I think everybody has that hunger, but for some people, it's been asleep for a long time because they're afraid. They're afraid that I'm going to get hungry, I'm going to try, I'm going to fail. And so it's human nature to protect yourself from the fear by just lowering your expectations. But one of the things I've learned is you get what you tolerate. You get what you tolerate in yourself, you get what you tolerate in your life, and sooner or later we sometimes hit a point where we say, not another day, not another hour, this is done. I'm not walking this way, I'm not talking this way, I'm not living this way, I'm not going to be in this relationship anymore, I'm going to change it. And when people do that, that's the beginning of a breakthrough. Everything in my world is based on coming up with the outcome that will serve and then going at it, but most of the time your approach going at it doesn't work. No one else knows that, but you know, you can see it doesn't work, so it's constantly changing your approach until you can get where you want to go. When I enter an audience and I'm going to give a talk of any sort, I do a huge amount of homework in advance, I prepare, I see who's there, but then when I stand up here, I wouldn't be sitting like this. I'm scanning constantly who I'm looking for that people think it's bullshit. I'm going after the people who got dragged there. I'm not looking for the people clapping for me. You know, those people will always be there, and there's some people who clap even if you're terrible, so you don't want to let other people's view make you feel good. I'm looking for who isn't there so that I can reach them, so I can show them that there's something real here. Because, you know, most people don't know who I am. They'd see, you know, 10,000 people jumping in a stadium and they go, oh, it's just a big motivational pump up. I've never been a motivator. It's never been what I've been about. I think motivation is useful. It's like a warm bath. You should probably take a bath or a shower every day, but you need more than that. You need strategy. But what I really believe is energy. Most of us grew up, and right now, most of you are learning in the traditional style you did even when you were in school. You were trained to go to your seat and be silent and be polite and nice. But the world we live in today isn't like that. The world today, if somebody sits down and waits for someone to tell them what to do, they're in trouble. So my approach is constantly stimulating and seeing what's real, getting people to be raw, and getting to truth. You know, as corny as it is, the truth sets us free, and we all can find our own truth as long as we put ourselves in an environment where we don't tolerate anything less than that.
Clarity is the DNA of mastery. So if you look at the titans of business, the true leaders in finance, these people literally will say, look at my charts. If you look at a great military leader, you look at a great athlete, they have such granular, in a world of superficiality, they have shifted to massive granularity so they know in intimate detail exactly what their future timeline will look like. Why? Because clarity breeds and builds and is the DNA of mastery. You want to have a very clear vision of what your future is going to look like. And when you know in intimate detail what your future will look like, then you automatically, subconsciously as well as consciously, can say no to the important. So you say a giant yes to the few things that are most important. You've heard me share this before. Confucius said it so well. The person who chases two rabbits catches neither. And so what I'm encouraging you to do is this exercise before you go to sleep tonight. Let's make this very tactical. I call it the 100-year timeline. On a single page from where you now are, 100 years out into your ideal future. I want you every single milestone on a single line to say, here's where I now am, here's what's going to happen next week, next month, next quarter, next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, 50 years, 75 years, 1 year, 100 years, until you have a 100-year timeline. On the other side of the piece of paper with crayons, so you tap into your part of the brain responsible for creativity, your right brain. Okay? With crayons, draw out your ideal family life, draw 1 year away, draw out your business life 1 year away, draw out your adventure life 1 year out into the future, draw out your financial life, draw out your material life, literally on a page with crayons, so you're not thinking. Because here's I think a needle-moving insight. World class comes from instinct versus intelligence. You get your best ideas when you get out of your thinking. And just to give you some neuroscience, the seat of reasoning is the prefrontal cortex, but there's a phenomenon I teach in my live events called transient hypofrontality. This is the secret of genius. Geniuses don't get their ideas for Uber, Amazon, the electric bulb, Tesla, Shakespeare, the polio vaccination, SpaceX. Great ideas don't come from the intellects. They don't come from the neocortex reasoning and thinking. All great heroes and great inventors and great creators dialed into something deeper. When you get out of your neocortex through solitude and my life structure that I teach called the tight bubble of total focus, and when you get away from distraction and you immerse yourself in deep creativity and creation, and you find your laboratory, or what I call your Menlo Park, like Edison had his Menlo Park, which was with the wilderness away from the world, what happens? The prefrontal cortex, it's silent, and it's called transient, which means temporary, transient hypo, small, frontality. The neocortex, the seat in your brain of thinking, actually shuts down for a short period of time. This is profound information and will confirm your brain is built for genius. But if you don't do the right things, you're not going to be able to allow the genius to see the light of day.
The hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And the moment you decide to no longer think the same way, make the same choice, act the same way, create the same experience, or live by the same emotion, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar. There is going to be a certain amount of uncertainty and unpredictability. And the moment you feel uncomfortable, you just stepped into the river of change. Now, most people, the moment they feel uncomfortable, they return back to the familiar state of the mind and body. They start thinking the same way, acting the same way, feeling the same way, and they say, this feels right. No, in fact, that feels familiar. Now, going from the old self to the new self is the neurological, is the chemical, is the biological, is the hormonal, and even genetic death of the old self. That void, that place of uncertainty, that unknown, is the perfect place to create it. And if you and I can become comfortable in that unknown and begin to decide who we do want to be. In other words, many people say when they're in that unknown, I can't predict my future. This doesn't feel right. Well, the best way to predict your future is to create it, not in the known, but in the unknown. So what if you said now, what thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain? What behaviors do I want to demonstrate? And if you were to close your eyes and begin to think about how you are going to act, the mere act of mentally rehearsing who you're going to be begins to install the neurological circuits in your brain to look like the experience has already occurred. Now, what that means is that the brain is primed in its circuitry to no longer be living in the past, but now living in the future.
I think that success is a process. And I believe that my first Easter speech in Kosciuszko Baptist Church at the age of 3.5 was the beginning. And that every other speech, every other book I read, every other time I spoke in public was a building block. so that by the time I first sat down to audition in front of a television camera and somebody says, read this, what allowed me to read it so comfortably and be so at ease with myself at that time was the fact that I'd been doing it a while. If I'd never read a book or I'd never spoken in public before, I would have been traumatized by it. So the fact that we went on the air with the Oprah Winfrey Show in 1986 nationally, and people say, oh, but you're so comfortable in front of the camera, you can be yourself. Well, it's because I've been being myself since I was 19. And I would not have been able to be as comfortable with myself had I not made mistakes on the air and been allowed to make mistakes on the air and understand that it doesn't matter. You know, there's no such thing to me as an embarrassing moment. No such thing. If I tripped and fell, if my bra strap showed, if my slip fell off, if I fell flat on my face, there's no such thing as an embarrassing moment, because I know that there is not a moment that I could possibly experience on the air that somebody else hasn't already experienced. So when it happens, you say, oh, my slip fell off. And it's no big deal. I mean, like, I was on TV the other day and somebody says, oh, Oprah, you have a run. Have you not seen a run before in your life? Well, I get them too, let me tell you. So, I mean, I can't be embarrassed. I can't be embarrassed. Now, when I first started out, that was not true, because I was pretending to be somebody I was not. I was pretending to be Barbara Walters. So I'd go to a news conference and I was more interested in how I phrased the question and how eloquent the question sounded, as opposed to listening to the answer. Which always happens when you're interested in impressing people instead of doing what you're supposed to be doing. And it took me a while. It took me messing up on the air during a live newscast. I was doing a list of foreign countries, and there was all these foreign names, and then Canada was thrown in, and I called Canada, Canada. And I got so tickled that I called Canada. I go, that wasn't Canada, that was Canada. Excuse me, that wasn't Canada, that wasn't Canada, that was Canada. And then I started laughing. Well, it became the first real moment I ever had. And the news director later said to me, well, if you do that, then you should just keep going. You shouldn't correct yourself and let people know. Well, I know, well, who's ever heard of Canada? So that was, for me, the beginning of realizing that, oh, you can laugh at yourself and you can make a mistake, and it's not the end of the world. You don't have to be perfect. And biggest lesson for me for television, because then it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Oh, sorry, bra strap showing.
I lived in a car, dog. I ain't had no backyard. I ain't had no TV. I ain't had no phone. I ain't got no bathroom. I ain't got no sink. I asked God every day, could I be rich? I told God, if you let me make it, when I get there, every chance I get, I'm going to tell everybody it was you. Here I am. And it was him. It was him. Now you got another route you want to take, go ahead. See, the thing about having faith is you don't need nobody's permission. You don't have to take out a loan. You don't have to get accepted into the course. You can start your faith today. You can start your walk with God today. You ain't got to clear it with nobody. There's plenty of openings. He's available. All you got to do is go. I got rich, and I'm not bragging, but I'm just telling you, I got rich because I asked. It is an amazing scripture, man. If you would only ask. Well, Steve, what do I ask for? Everything.
Where do we go to get that energy we need and that to keep our focus and to keep our drive?
Whenever you're moving from one level to the other and you have to reinvent yourself, the adjustment, it's very, very difficult. It's very, very challenging. And I think that you need to begin to remind yourself of your why. You know, Nietzsche said, if you know the why for living, if you know why you're doing something, it will empower you to endure anything that you're going through. When you're working in corporations, you're working in financial services, it's a very competitive area. It's very, very dynamic. This is the era that Peter Drucker calls the era of the 3 C's: accelerated change, overwhelming complexity, and tremendous competition. And so people are tensed and very, very stressed out. So how do you deal with that? And knowing why you do what it is that you do. The name of the game right now is perceptual and psychological. It's the mental adjustments that we must make in the midst of the difficulties. That's what leaders do. Leaders don't panic. They are not intimidated by the change. They're not intimidated by the difficulties. What they are empowered by it. I remember reading something that says not what you don't have is what you think you need that keeps you from handling the difficulties and the challenges of life. And we have everything we need within us to face and to deal with whatever we have at hand, because we're more powerful than anything that we're up against.
Now, these mental adjustments and this idea that I've got what I need, I mean, in some ways that represents who I am.
For many years, I was living a life that I was not designed to do. I'm designed to speak. That's what I do. But for 42 years, I'm 62 now, for 42 years, I was doing something I wasn't designed to do, because when I looked at what I wanted to do, that was to speak, to train, to empower people, that my inner conversation to myself was, Les Brown, you can't do that. You were labeled educable mental retarded in the 5th grade. You have no college training. You were born in an abandoned building on a floor. You don't even know your birth parents. You can't do that. You are DT. You were called the dumb twin. Those words became my reality for many years. And then someone came along and interrupted that conversation in my head and said, Mr. Brown, they tell me you're about to drop out of school. And I said, well, yes. Why? I can't, I'm not smart like my brother. And I'll never forget when we first met, I was in his class waiting on another student, and he came in and said, young man, go to this board and work this problem out for me. I said, sir, I can't do that. I'm not one of your students. He said, it doesn't matter. Follow my directions anyhow. And I said, I can't, sir. And he said, why? I said, sir, because I'm educable mental retarded. He said, don't you ever say that again. Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. So now this man changed how I saw myself. When I saw myself as the dumb twin, and that was the conversation in my head. That was given to me. That's what I believed. I accepted that. So the things that I was up against academically, they began to appear not as difficult as I thought they were, because now he empowered me. Before then, right before then, up to that point, the things that were placed before me, I would stumble, I would slow the class down because I was convinced that I was dumb. I believed what they said to me. And this guy came along and he changed my perception of myself. Someone said that people don't live life as it is, they live life as they are. And so what we have to do as leaders, I don't care where you are in customer service, managing people, that you have to do during the tough times, you have to bring the best out of yourself.
So it's right now. It's at this time of the struggle. We go through a restructuring. We have competition that's doing weird stuff out in the market. And what you're saying is it's right now that tests my mettle, that builds me as a leader.
Yes, without any question. The sign that I saw the other day that said, if you're going through hell, don't stop. Keep moving. You know, you got to continue to move. And if you continue to move and make the adjustments and fine tune your strategy and let the people on the organization know, hey, look here, we're going to make this happen. And here's what they have to do. They have to come from a place of it's possible. And once people begin to know that it's possible, then they begin to work within that framework. Sometimes we have to be intelligently ignorant. Many people fail to achieve the goals that they're capable of doing because they judge according to appearances. They know too much and they think themselves out of it. What we have to do in this point in time, at this period of our history, is begin to be open to the possibility that it's possible, that we can do this. And the next step is that it's necessary. It's necessary that we find a way to make this work, that we look for ways to optimize the efficiency of our operation. It's necessary that everybody gets on the same page. It's necessary that we develop one vision, one voice, and higher standards on how we're going to begin to drive the culture, to impact our bottom line, to begin to take the level of customer service that we envision to another level to dominate the marketplace. It's necessary. Being second place is not name of the game. That's not acceptable. We've got to make it happen. And that it's you and it's me. All of us must take ownership for it. It was George Bernard Shaw who said the people that make it in life, they look around for the circumstances that they want, and if they can't find them, they create them. That's what leaders do.
And how do I take that picture that I have and get my employees to really see the possibility as well?
Speed of the leader, speed of the group. You have got to buy into it. You've got to believe it. The difference between leaders and people that are followers. Leaders, it's a whole different standard for them. You know, it's a difference between being in the business and the business being in you. That it has to be who you are and that you set the pace for the organization. If the leader becomes cynical, if there's any doubt, if you don't have absolute faith that you can make it happen, if you become cynical, if they sense that you don't believe that it can happen, if you start complaining about the fact that you can't get your higher-ups to answer, or there's so much political bureaucracy that we have to deal with, that you're frustrated, that you don't know what to do, that you're pulling your hair out, that you can't sleep at night because of the fact that it's out of your control. If you have that victim mindset and feeling powerless, that nonverbal communication, your facial expression, your energy, the spirit of who you are, that will permeate and contaminate the spirit of the organization. Many leaders, their effectiveness with their people, their impact, their influence begins to diminish because they don't take the time to sharpen their minds, to build their faith, to build their skills, to empower and increase their confidence in themselves. So part of what we have to do, all leaders, you have to take time to pour into yourself, and you've got to also reach out. You've got to have a board of advisors, and it's your support committee that will give you a home court advantage. More teams win at home than they do on the road. 87%. Why? Because they have people cheering for them. I think that all leaders should have people around them, their group, their mastermind group, that will help to pour into them. There's safety and counsel that they can talk to. One of the things I always tell leaders that ask for help, not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong. And ask for help, and don't stop until you get it.
What do I do if I'm just not interested in playing this game? You know, it's easier. Maybe I'll just coast it out. You know, some of us have had our careers for a long time.
Yes.
Can't I just mark time until this passes, or, you know, until something new comes along?
You can't do that. You can become a volunteer victim and choose to play your life out like that. What if you live your whole life only to discover that it was wrong?
You must fight, and you must believe. Fight for the love that you have inside of you. Believe in everything that you are putting forward, and leave the rest behind you. What you are looking for and what you are fighting for depends on you. Let this be a lesson, not only for yourself, but for the rest of the world that is watching you. Make your stand. Make your stand for the right reasons. Make sure everything that you believe in stays with you. Because the moment you are faced with any challenge, there is no turning back. When there are multiple challenges coming at you, when everything that is trying to destroy your idea of being your best, keep your eyes on the prize and move forward. Your time is now. Make sure you make that moment count. If you believe that you are a champion, then stand on it. Because that is ultimately what champions are made for.
Success requires that you stare into the eyes of the things that make you feel uncomfortable. You have to learn how to master that fear. Every time that it arises on the inside of you, you've got to reach in there and pull it out and place it on your opponent, on the obstacle or the challenge that you're facing. Every time that fear knocks, you answer the door with faith. For the Lord did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. You either master that fear, or that fear is going to master you. Because every time you give into that fear, a piece of your life dies. So I want you to make a decision right here and right now. Draw a line in the sand and say, I will not live this way. Fear cannot have me anymore. Nelson Mandela said, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Now I will say it again. To go to the next level, You must boldly and aggressively attack the things that scare you. You must learn to look at that fear in the eye and the things that make you feel uncomfortable and say, so what? You will not stand in the way of my greatness. Every time fear shows its face, you grab it by its neck and you choke the life out of it. Stop letting false evidence appearing real destroy your dreams. Fear is just faith in reverse. Arise, champion.
Studies show that your attitude can have a greater impact on your success than your IQ. You can be extremely talented, have incredible potential, but if you don't have the right attitude, it will keep you from rising higher. And we spend all kinds of time and money making sure the outside looks good. Eating right, working out, wearing the latest fashions, and that's all fine, but too often we're not spending any time on the inside. Nice clothes won't cover up a bad attitude. A pretty face, perfect makeup won't hide being bitter on the inside. In high school, this new girl moved into town and she was very beautiful, very attractive, and I was shy, never had the nerve to talk to her. But our senior year, we had a class together. The seating was assigned. It just so happened I was sitting right next to her. I thought I had died and gone to heaven. And the first time I sat by her, I turned, just being friendly, and said hello, nothing more. She looked at me like I had just insulted her, like she was totally offended. She looked away and never said a word to me the whole semester. She was beautiful on the outside, but can I tell you, she was ugly on the inside. I never saw her the same way. A bad attitude makes you unattractive. It overrides what's on the outside. It's important to look good, to develop your skills, to get an education, but it's even more important to keep a good attitude. Nobody wants to be around a sour, critical, condescending person.
All you got to do is start changing the way you think. It's as simple as, it's not a magic trick. You can protect yourself from negativity. And that's what stops most people, negative thoughts. You can coat your mind from negativity. It's a real simple exercise to do. I do it every morning before I walk out the door. So I walk out as a positive person. You know, I get tired sometimes. That's different from being negative, because I get mentally drained from my job at times. But to coat your mind from negativity, the way you can put a coating around your mind is with one simple thing: gratitude. Gratitude erases negativity. I'm gonna show you how this works. If you wake up in the morning and you start having negative thoughts, man, this ain't my day. I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I'm tripping, I just don't feel myself. Every time you feel in the middle of the day, if you feel yourself doing that, stop, just stop for a second and start going over in your mind everything you have to be grateful for. Not everything you want, everything you already have, because what you have is substantial. You just haven't gone over the list and taken inventory in a long time. But the fact that you can walk, that's a blessing. The fact that you woke up, that's another blessing. The fact that you can see, think, reason, that's another blessing. The fact that you can go somewhere and get yourself something to eat, that's another blessing. The fact that you can go and turn the key and call someplace home, that's another blessing. The ability to dream is a blessing. The fact that you have an opportunity to get it right is another blessing. The fact that you're beautiful, that's another blessing. The fact that you have any measure of health, that's another blessing. And I'm just talking to you, I don't even know you. I could give you 50 things you ought to be grateful for right now. I don't even know you. Start coating your mind with gratitude. It'll change everything for you.
Colossians 3 in the Message translation says, dress in the wardrobe God picked out for you: kindness, compassion, and humility. As parents, sometimes we pick out clothes for our children to wear. Our Heavenly Father has picked out something for us all to wear. Kindness, being good to people, being pleasant to be around. When you're kind, you draw people to you. When you're good-natured, friendly, opportunity will come your way. People want to do business with people that they like. When we're hiring someone, their resume tells us what they can do, what their skills are, but we always meet with them to see what their attitude is. Are they positive? Are they friendly, kind, considerate? We can find someone else with the same skills. The real question is, do they have the attitude that's going to take us higher? They may be gifted, but a negative attitude will pull the team down. Your attitude is going to determine your altitude. It will determine how high or how low you go. Well, Joel, I've always been kind of negative, critical, condescending. That's just who I am. No, that's who you're choosing to be. That's not who you are. That may be how you were raised. That's what you saw growing up, but that's not how you have to stay. Try being kind, friendly, good-natured. You'll not only enjoy life more, but you'll go further. On an airplane, there's an instrument called an attitude indicator. It shows how level the plane is on the horizon. And if the pilot wants to ascend, he tilts the plane nose high. If he wants to descend, he tilts it nose down. It's the same principle in life. If you have a nose high attitude, if you're positive, you see the best, you're kind to people, you have a smile, because you're nose high, you're going to continue to rise higher. You're going to see God's blessings and favor. But if you're sour, hard to get along with, you don't want to go to work, bitter over disappointments, because you have a nose down attitude, your life is going to go that direction. And sometimes we're discouraged over what we brought on ourselves. It's not the enemy, it's our attitude. The good news is, all you have to do is make an attitude adjustment. It's not complicated. You can't change other people. You can't change how you were raised. A lot in life we can't control. But one thing we can all control is our attitude. Am I going to live this day negative, sour, seeing the wrong, chip on my shoulder, or am I going to live it in faith, positive, hopeful, seeing the best, being good to people? This is a choice that we have to make every day. If you're going to have a good attitude, you have to do it on purpose, because there will be all kinds of negative things that try to creep in. Bitterness, discouragement, self-pity. If you're not proactive, if you don't choose the right attitude, then the wrong attitude will show up.
The diseases of attitude. It's never that pleasant to talk about the negative, but we got to talk about it because life is part negative. These attitude diseases are like weeds that grow in the garden. It's a normal part of life. Here's a good phrase to note. Negative is normal. It's not successful, but it's normal. It's part of life. And here's the next key, in my opinion. You must learn to handle the negative. Don't ignore it. Handle it. Now, I know some people teach the other way. And listen to them, and listen to me, and then make up your own mind. Right? Don't be a follower. Be a student. But I say you got to handle the negative. You don't have to live in it. You don't have to dwell on it. But you do have to handle it, my opinion. I know some people teach, just turn your head real quick and say, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. They'll take your garden. So you've got to handle the negative. Here's what part of it is. It's called the great war between good and evil. Mr. Reynolds and I are working on a new book this year called The Great War Between Good and Evil. And there is a war on. The minute you were born, you got involved in the war between good and evil, between darkness and light, between negative and positive, between evil and good, between tyranny and democracy, between weeds and human activity. I mean, the war is on. If democracy sleeps, guess who never sleeps? Tyranny. In the absence of light, guess what's automatic? Darkness. If good does not arouse itself and become active, guess what moves in? Evil. It's a war. A mental war, a physical war, a financial war, between enterprise and ease, between accomplishment and failure. It's a war. That's why there's an Old Testament phrase that gives the best advice for human activity when it says, 6 days labor, 1 day rest. Now, I'm sure we've taken that to mean don't work all 7 days. Take one off. Here's what it also means. Only take one off. Or you're liable to lose the war. Now we've got to finally got that monkey off my back. And I discovered you could live the most incredible life free of worry. Not free of challenge, not free of difficulty, free of worry. I learned how to do it, and you can. Here's the next attitude disease. Overcaution. Some people never will have much. They're too cautious. Now, you can also be too reckless, but you can also be too cautious. This is called the timid approach to life. And my caution was always the risk. Risk used to drive me right up the wall. I used to say, what if this happens? It's called the language of the poor. What if this happens? And on top of that, if this was to happen, look at the fix I'd be in. I better not try. I could always ace myself out. Then I'll tell you what changed my whole life when I finally discovered it's all risky. The minute you were born, it got risky.
If you will get rid of the offense, the critical spirit, the negative attitude, you'll get that spring back in your step. You'll not only enjoy life more, but you'll see favor in greater ways. What could you be if your heart was totally unclogged? How high could you fly if you didn't have contaminants holding you back? It's time to find out. Get up every morning, start putting on this fresh new attitude. This day is a gift from God. It is filled with possibilities, new ideas, new friendships. I'm asking you, like that airplane, to live nose high, focused on the good, focused on the possibilities. If you'll do this, I believe and declare you're about to lift off. New doors are about to open, freshness in your relationships, healing, promotion, new levels, the fullness of your destiny in Jesus' name.
The one way to coach your mind from depression is with gratitude. Every time I feel myself not starting to feel some kind of way, just take a paper and pencil out. Just start writing down everything you have to be grateful for. Whatever it is. Your health, you can walk, you can still see, you have a car, may not be the one you want. I have a place to live. I ate today. I see a way that I can eat tomorrow. I got a friend that I can call and share my troubles with. And just be real detailed with it. You would be stunned how long you'll be writing. Now, let me tell you what happens. Once gratitude erases all negativity, because there's no room now for negativity. It's not a magic trick. Joy and depression cannot reside in the same space. Those two things cannot exist at the same time. Also, what it does, it changes your focus from what you don't have to what you do have. Gratitude changes your perception. Your perception changes your existence. That's all you're trying to do. That's all you're trying to do. After you've done that, here's what I want you to do. Write a list after you make this list of everything you're grateful for. I want you to read this list every morning you wake up of everything you're grateful for. After you've thanked him for all this stuff, I want you to take another piece of paper out. I want you to write on this piece of paper everything you want. Everything you want. Now what he gonna do is he gonna tie them two lists together. So now since you showing me all this gratitude for what I've already done for you, remember I said the more grateful you are, the more stuff he'll give you to be grateful for? He gonna take this other list you got and he gonna start putting it on this side. Then he gonna take some more stuff and gonna put on this side. He'll take some more stuff and put on this side. I'm telling you. Let me tell y'all something. If y'all don't think that works, I wish you would try it. Listen to me. I have no other explanation for my life. I do it every single day. And you know what he does? Slowly but surely, he takes this list and he starts taking items and putting it on the grateful list. He has done it for me like that for years and years and years. He did it for me without education. He did it for me when I lost my mom and daddy, my brother, my best friend. He did it for me when they canceled my TV shows. He keeps taking stuff off my want list and putting it on my grateful for list. If you do them things right there, you'll change your whole life.
You concentrate on what you have, you will always end up having more, even if it's just $2. If you focus on what you don't have, you will never, ever, ever have enough. So 16 years ago, I started a gratitude journal, and I will have to say, it was the single most important thing I believe I've ever done. So every day, for years now, I've written down 5 things to be grateful for. And you have to write them down. It's very different than just saying, oh, I'm grateful for today. You have to physically write them down because there's power in the words. Even simple things like fresh flowers or somebody holding the door open for me. So when you wake up in the morning and you consciously look for things to be thankful for, what happens is if you go through the day thinking about the 5 things that you're going to do in the evening, you are more alive and receptive to the goodness that comes in your life. Because sometimes it is as simple as somebody holding the door. So when you allow yourself to feel gratitude in the present moment, in the now, what I promise you is that the spiritual dimension of your life begins to change. It opens up, it expands, and you just grow with it. That is the truth. If I ever spoke the truth in my life, if you want to change your state of being, start to be grateful.
The more you're grateful for, the more God will give you to be grateful for. Instead of complaining about what's going on, man, I got to go to work today. Man, I got these kids. Remember when you wanted a job? Remember when you wanted a baby? You know what I learned? You can't cry about what's on your plate when your whole goal was to eat. The moment you start showing God more gratitude, he'll give you more stuff. What he do is, he not gonna keep giving you stuff if what you got you can't handle already. You kill more blessings by not being grateful. That's the #1 blessing blocker, lack of gratitude.
I had a really good friend of mine, I went to lunch and he said, I don't know who this guy is here. And he goes, let me ask you a question. Right now, what are you grateful for? And at the lunch I said, nothing, brother. There's nothing good in my life right now. As I'm mouthing these words, 2 people walked in with an older man. Both of them clearly were fighting cancer somehow. Both walked by our table and gave me the warmest smile as a stranger. And he goes, that's pretty freaking pathetic. You can't find anything in your life to be grateful for right now? Because if you can find things to be grateful for in that space, man, is your life going to be rich when there really are external things to be grateful for. And what happens is there's this reticular activating system in our brains. All of a sudden, all these things start to come into my awareness that I'm grateful for. I started to see things to be grateful for.
Choose to be happy in spite of life's challenges. Life changes every day. Sometimes things will be going your way. Sometimes it won't work so well. Sometimes you'll have your health, you're feeling good, and there's some things that can happen to you in life that can take all of that from you. Life always changes. But you can choose in the midst of all of this that's going on to be happy in spite of it. Viktor Frankl, he said the last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Douglas Matlock has a poem I love. He said, sure, this world is full of trouble. Lord, I've had enough and double reason for complaint. Rain and storm have come to fret me. Skies are often gray. But say, ain't it fine today? What's the use of always keeping thinking of the past? Each must have his tribulation, water with his wine. Trouble? I've had mine, but today is fine. It may rain again tomorrow. It may rain, but say, ain't it fine today? Ain't it fine today? Living in the moment, getting everything we can out of where we are in the moment where we are right now. The other thing is willingness to let people and things go, especially if they want to go. When they're no longer good for you, just let them go. Just to hold on tenaciously really doesn't make really good sense, all right? Next thing is face the truth about life and deal with it. In order to have a fulfilling life, knowing that things are going to happen, expect the unexpected. Everything that happens, use it for your upliftment. What can I get from this? How did I end up here? What's the blessing in this for me? And don't let it go until you get your blessing out of it, because there's a blessing there. There's something for you in everything that happens to you for you to learn from that experience. Analyze it, dissect it, take it apart, and then get what you need from that and move on. Here's something I encourage you to do. Whatever you do, do it in a consciousness of love, in spite of the circumstances. Emmett Fox said, love is absolutely invincible. No disease that enough love will not heal. No door that enough love will not open. No wall that enough love will not throw down. It makes no difference how deeply seated may be the trouble, how great the mistake, a sufficient realization of love will dissolve it all. And he ends it in a scripture that says, God is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God. Whatever work you have to do it lovingly. Just decide to be more loving, more giving, more caring, more sensitive than you've ever been before. But what if you don't get it back? But don't count on it. Don't let someone else determine who you're going to be. Do it because that's who you are. Do it because it gives your life a sense of fulfillment and self-respect. Anybody can hate. Anybody can do that. Anybody can hold a grudge. But the real challenge about growth and moving into your greatness is about being who you are. I say, as you look at life, as you go toward your goals and your dreams, spring forth with a mighty faith to start the business that ought to be started by you, to make the difference in our society that ought to be made by you. How is it that I can make the contribution that I showed up to give? And one last step, I think, in the area of self-fulfillment, you must live in a spirit of gratitude.
There's so many things, ladies and gentlemen, that we take for granted. There are a lot of things that we need to be thankful for. There are big things, there are little things. I'm thankful for my children. I'm thankful for the life that I live and for the people who have enriched my life.
You can't wait till you receive the promise. You have to thank God that the answer is on the way. Don't talk about how you feel. Say, thank you that I'm healthy. Thank you with long life you're satisfying me. In your finances, maybe you're struggling. All through the day, thank you that whatever I touch prospers and succeeds. Thank you that your favor surrounds me like a shield. When you thank God in advance for the answer, that's what keeps you encouraged. You're not going to stay determined if you're talking about how bad it is. God, you said you wanted me to be blessed, but my business is so slow. No, switch over into praise. Business may be slow, but Lord, I want to thank you that you prosper me even in a desert. Praise makes you strong. Praise keeps you moving forward. I'll thank God after business picks up, after I see the solution. So if you don't learn this principle to thank God in advance, you won't have the strength you need to wait for the promise.